That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
How many of you picked that up? Yes, that's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Of course, many of us in this room know that this quote was from Neil Armstrong. Mike, can you turn me down just a smidge? And it was uttered on July 20th, 1969. And some of us in this room even remember where we were when we watched Neil Armstrong step foot on the moon. But when you think about that statement, there's some irony in it. Walking on the moon was anything but a small step. It was a million small steps. Some of those steps had very large consequences, right? Apollo 1 in 1967 cost the lives of 3 astronauts on the launch pad. And there were other project management issues that tried to balance safety with expediency, but they didn't always come in quite balanced. And all of this was because President Kennedy in 1961 put a challenge before our nation that we gladly accepted: to reach a goal of walking on the moon by the end of the decade. We try these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. I would have liked to have been sitting with the director of NASA, which had only been formed 3 years earlier in 1958, when he heard Kennedy throw out that challenge. But the space race became a competition, and Americans loved that. And the space program grew exponentially. Part of the reason for its success is that President Kennedy's enthusiasm mirrored our own. Our country was coming out of World War II with a sense of invincibility. For many reasons, the median income in a family increased significantly. And this economic strength offered unprecedented opportunity to the middle class. Our military was the strongest in the world. Little boy and fat man proved that. Our president was young, and he invigorated in the U.S. citizens a sense of idealism and and service. Programs such as the Peace Corps that resonated with a culture that was steeped in Christianity. So you want us to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade, Mr. President? Yes, we can. Now, this idealism created a courage that led us to grapple as a society with uncomfortable issues from our past: civil rights, equality for women, and Vietnam raised the question of the morality of war. So where did that optimism go? That feeling of invincibility that existed only a couple of generations ago? What happens when idealism burns out? Well, how about cynicism and negativity? Emotional exhaustion, loss of meaning and purpose, apathy, detachment, hopelessness. You know, as I was reading these words when I was doing my research on this for today, I found myself resonating with many of those words. Without raising your hands, do any of these words hit home for you too sometimes? Ever feel kind of like a heavyweight boxer who who's trying desperately to get back up off the mat after being knocked down by a strong right cross. But difficult as it may be, when knocked down, we get up. Why? Because we are people of faith. We are called to be the light in the darkness, and we want to answer that call. We can't help but answer that call. So we fight against burnout. We continue to put one foot in front of the other and take the small steps that lead back to optimism and hope for a future governed by love. After Neil Armstrong uttered his famous moon landing statement, NASA was asked if they scripted those words for him. They replied, no. Those words came authentically from Mr. Armstrong. A NASA spokesman further clarified, the truest emotion is what the explorer feels within himself. Small steps sometimes need to be taken alone. And sometimes they are most powerful when taken collectively. And it is for that reason, and so many more, that I say to you every Sunday, welcome to worship. We are so glad you're here.